Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. I'm Juliana Brock.
And I'm Ruthie Light. Hear about the controversies of the Trump administration's foreign relations, including an ambassador being expelled and security plans leaked.
And a car crash that took place right outside Point Park University. Learn about the details and ongoing investigation.
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
Last week, 4 rare snow leopards were seen in northern Pakistan. Sakawit Ali, a gamekeeper and photographer, found paw prints in central Karakoram National Park and followed them for 2 weeks. The Karakoram mountain range is the ideal habitat for snow leopards to be found due to its rocky terrain and snowy mountains to help them blend in. Standing on the roof of his house, Ali saw a mother and her cubs climbing the snowy mountains, and he took his chance to gather the footage. From 200 meters away, he captured their beautiful fur and movements. The community celebrated the success of Pakistan's conservation efforts to keep these endangered animals around. Snow leopards are considered vulnerable, with only 3,920 left. The species faces numerous threats from human activities, such as poaching and fragmentation, as well as climate change. The World Wildlife Fund for Nature Pakistan stated its optimism in finding the snow leopards, but warns the vulnerability of this species. In a statement, it said, quote, "It is crucial that local communities work together to protect and conserve these incredible big cats, ensuring future generations can witness their splendor in the wild."
Saturday night leading into Sunday morning, Ukraine was devastated by a massive drone attack on Kiev and other major cities launched by Russia, killing at least 7 Ukrainians. According to Ukraine's Air Force, the attack was from Russia involved 147 drones, 97 of which were shot down and another 25 failed to reach their targets. In the nation's capital of Kiev specifically, 3 people were killed, including a 5-year-old, and at least 10 others were injured. In a statement, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that attacks such as the one in Kiev were a daily occurrence for Ukraine. According to Zelensky, quote, "This week alone, more than 1,580 guided aerial bombs, almost 1,100 strike drones, and 15 missiles of various types were used against our people. New solutions are needed with new pressure on Moscow to stop both strikes and this war," end quote. The drone attacks came mere days before Ukrainian and Russian delegations are set to meet for indirect peace talks with the U.S. in Saudi Arabia. The U.S. will mediate the talks and meet with representatives separately.
Pope Francis has finally returned home to the Vatican on Saturday after being hospitalized for 5 weeks. After being hospitalized for double pneumonia, the Pope has returned home. After speculation about the Pope's condition, Pope Francis appeared to be in relatively good health despite an oxygen tube and overall weak condition. For now, the Pope will continue to recover over the next 2 months at home resting.
A South African ambassador, Ibrahim Rasool, was welcomed home by a celebration this past Sunday after returning from the United States as persona non grata. Rasool landed at the Cape Town International Airport, where political figures and party members gathered around him and his wife. The expulsion came after Rasool called out President Trump for perpetrating white supremacy in a webinar to the Wapambanabe Institute for Strategic Reflection. This action removed Rasool from the country and his position, as well as any diplomatic privileges he had. Rasool stood by his comments at the airport, saying, quote, "I would stand by my analysis because we were analyzing a political phenomenon, not a personality, not a nation, and not even a government," end quote. Rasool is among a few high-ranking ambassadors to ever be pronounced persona non grata. Coming up after the break, hear about Trump's action to cut funding to the Department of Education, and wildfires have not only hit California but are devastating the South. Stay with us.
Last week, President Trump signed an executive order to dismantle the U.S. Education Department. He argues the federal office has not improved student outcomes and is unnecessary in a country where states and districts control education by their curriculum. Right-wing activists have been calling for this order for decades. According to AP News, President Trump described the Education Department as, quote, wasteful and spreading woke ideas, such as programs to support diversity, equity, and inclusion, and protections for transgender students, end quote. What does this mean? Well, the Education Department is responsible for enforcing discrimination laws and distributing aid money to low-income areas and students with disabilities. If this order gets passed, the short-term results may not be impactful, but the long-term results are unpredictable. To dismantle the department, it is up to Congress. The Republicans in Congress plan to continue this order but face heavy backlash from Democrats. It is up to Education Secretary Linda McMahon to distribute the mandated functions of the department. Federal job cuts have already impacted federal organizations, including those who worked for FAFSA, which McMahon claims she intends to maintain FAFSA. States and organizations are filing lawsuits to halt the dismantle, which will slow down the process of the executive order taking place. In the meantime, Trump has been punishing schools with diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and cutting federal funding.
A New York woman, Yolani Mejia Carranza, was arrested for running an unlicensed dentistry operation inside her home in Suffolk County, despite having no professional dentistry training. According to Suffolk County Police Commissioner Kevin Catalina, Carranza was charged with 3 counts of unauthorized practice of a profession. In a news conference on Friday, Catalina said that the investigation began when third-party precedent detectives received tips that Carranza had injured several patients and in one case caused severe nerve damage that led to partial facial paralysis. Catalina added that the police believe Carranza was targeting the Hispanic community, particularly illegal immigrants without health insurance. Police believe that she practiced another illegal home dentistry for 8 years at a different location prior to being caught in Suffolk County. Overall, prosecutors are alleging that Carranza had been operating a dental practice for the last 10 to 15 years without having the proper licensing. Carranza was arraigned March 14th and released. However, she is due back in court on April 1st. As the U.S. prepares for military strikes on Yemen, a group chat was leaked between national security advisors and an unsuspecting journalist. This has raised concerns of national security from both the public and the Trump administration. Reporter Leslie Krebs has the scoop. Leslie?
Thanks, Ruthie. An apparent group chat consisting of Trump's top national security officials leaked sensitive information. The group chat, which included upcoming military strikes on Yemen, appeared to include a journalist from The Atlantic. Experts are considering the group chat to be, quote, authentic, but unsure of how the journalist came to be included. Journalist Jeffrey Goldberg, who is editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, said the text included information on, quote, contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. could be deploying, and attack sequencing, end quote. When asked about the apparent leak, Trump claimed he was unaware the military information was spread. Goldberg first received the details on March 15th, the same day the U.S. began airstrikes in Yemen against the Houthi targets. Goldberg claims he received the text invitation from Trump's national security advisor, Mike Walls, who was a member of that group chat. Other members of the said group chat included President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The National Security Council is currently looking into how the leak happened. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said President Trump still has, quote, the utmost confidence in Walls and his security team, end quote.
Evacuation orders are in place for the western parts of North and South Carolina as nearly half a dozen wildfires continue to burn. A wildfire incident management team supported by out-of-state help includes 25 firefighters from Oregon are now handling the response to a group of fires in Polk County, North Carolina. No injuries or deaths have been reported, but the fires have burned thousands of acres. The Black Cove Fire, which started last Wednesday in Green River Gorge, has consumed over 2,000 acres and still remains 0% contained. New evacuations were ordered Sunday for residents of 5 roadways. State Forest Ranger Brian Rogers said, quote, "We're holding that fire in the creek drainage," end quote. He expressed optimism despite the glaring challenges. Nearby, the Deep Woods Fire has burned more than 20,500 acres. The Fishhook Fire is 50% contained, which has allowed some evacuees to return home. In South Carolina, more wildfires are burning uncontained, including one at Table Rock Mountain, now over 300 acres. Governor Henry McMaster has declared a state of emergency to allow state resources to assist. Both states are in the midst of their spring wildfire season, with burn bans in place and heightened fire danger due to high winds and dry conditions. State officials are urging residents to avoid outdoor burning to help prevent further spread.
Olympic medalist, heavyweight champion, and grill entrepreneur George Foreman passed at the age of 76. On Friday, Foreman's family announced his passing via Instagram with a caption saying, quote, "Our hearts are broken. With profound sorrow, we announce the passing of our beloved George Edward Foreman Sr., who peacefully departed on March 21st, 2025, surrounded by loved ones," end quote. Foreman's cause of death has not been revealed at this time. Pittsburgh Regional Transit is cutting bus lines. A fire spills out in Troy Hill, and a car crash right outside Point Park University injures 2. Learn about all this and more coming up after the break.
Leslie. An update on the University of Pittsburgh student who went missing earlier this month during her spring break. Sudiksha Kanaki went missing during her spring break in Punta Cana. She was last seen walking to the beach around 4:15 a.m. on March 6 with her group of friends. She was last with 22-year-old Joshua Ribby, a student at St. Cloud University in Minnesota, who Kanaki met on this trip. Ribby is not considered a suspect, but a witness. She and Ribby stayed back at the beach while everyone left. At 4:50 a.m. on March 6, a large wave formed in the ocean. They both struggled, and he believed Kanaki escaped and went back to her hotel room. They were both heavily drinking that night. Ribby was flown back to Punta Cana and was confined to a hotel for 10 days during the investigation, being escorted by officers showing where he was last with Kanaki. Officials confiscated his passport during that time. Kanaki's family recently requested that she be declared deceased and the investigation end. They sent this request in writing to the sheriff's office, as well as expressing deep gratitude to the investigators and those who helped. In their statement, they wrote that they believe Sudiksha drowned in the ocean. Ribby returned to the United States, and in the written request from Kanaki's family, they had commented on his cooperation with investigators and that a lack of evidence found indicates there was no foul play involved. London County Sheriff Mike Chapman wrote in a statement, quote, "While a final decision to make such a declaration rests with authorities in the Dominican Republic, we will support the Kanaki family in every way possible as we continue to review the evidence and information made available to us in the course of this investigation," end quote.
On Sunday, a chaotic fire in Pittsburgh's Troy Hill neighborhood filled the air with thick black smoke, caused a building to collapse, and forced multiple residents to evacuate the area. According to an Allegheny County 911 dispatcher, first responders were called to the scene along Herman Street and Adair Street at 11:45 a.m. following reports of a two-alarm residential fire. Kara Cruz, spokesperson for Pittsburgh Public Safety, said the flames were exposed on multiple sides of the home, causing residents in at least two nearby houses to evacuate. She added that the main structure collapsed, resulting in a total property loss as crews worked to extinguish the fire. Because the structures in the neighborhood are located so close to one another, the fire put multiple properties at risk. The evacuated residents are now receiving assistance from the Red Cross. One home is covered in debris and was condemned by the building inspector. The other home had minimal damage. Investigators believe the fire was suspicious in nature, and two other fire incidents were reported nearby on Hatteras Street and Lowry Street on Saturday night. Do you take public transportation in Pittsburgh? Well, Pittsburgh Regional Transit has some big changes coming next year that will impact everyone that uses their services. Reporter Leslie Krebs has details on what they are and their effects on your transits. Leslie?
Thanks, Ruthie. Pittsburgh Regional Transit plans to undergo service cuts up to 35% by February of next year. 19 municipalities and 3 city neighborhoods will lose all PRT services. PRT will eliminate 40 out of their 100 bus routes while restricting another 34. Services for the bus and light rail will end at 11 p.m. every day. Service fares currently at $2.75 will see an increase. And PRT's Chief Development Officer stated, quote, 180,000 residents and 50,000 jobs inside Allegheny County that lose all access to any walkable or rollable public transit service, end quote. These massive changes are a result of the lack of funding and the over $100 million deficit PRT is experiencing. PA Governor Shapiro has proposed a $40 million annual increase. But in order to sustain the current Allegheny services, the number needs to increase drastically. PRT CEO Catherine Kellman stated, quote, "It's been a long time coming. Without additional funding, we are talking catastrophic service changes. We're talking a 2/3 contraction in our paratransit access network, which makes life happen. It's life-saving and life-giving and life-making," end quote. If the cuts are approved by the PRT board in a meeting set for next Friday, 3 public hearings will take place before the final decision this July.
2 juveniles were injured and rushed to the hospital after a crash that happened early Saturday morning right in the city of Pittsburgh. The crash happened along the Boulevard of the Allies at 1:45 a.m. after the vehicle the juveniles were traveling in crashed into 3 parked vehicles. The 2 juveniles, one male and one female, had to be extricated from the vehicle. The male suffered a broken pelvis, 2 broken legs, and was listed in critical condition, while the female was transported for evaluation and was listed in stable condition. A gun was found and recovered by police from the vehicle. The crash is still under investigation.
A group of University of Pittsburgh students took to the streets of Oakland to protest for Palestine despite a university-ordered suspension. The Students for Justice in Palestine group started their suspension last week after a recent gathering was conducted outside of university policy. The group received support from the American Civil Liberties Union, who wrote a letter to the school's chancellor demanding the group resume or else legal action would follow. CBS News spoke to one protester, Kareem Safi-Adin, a PhD student at Pitt, who says that, quote, "There's definitely a singling out of SJP given the affairs of the country today, the controversy of what's happening in the region, more generally, and the role of the U.S. in it," end quote. The University of Pittsburgh has yet to comment on the incident. Hear about an American icon turning 100, and your weather update will tell you more about the ever-changing Pittsburgh climate. Don't go away. 2, 1. Take them, cue them, open their mics.
Today marked the 1-year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette strike.
Point Park University just hosted a campus-wide meeting.
Plans for the rapid transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025.
For most Americans, Rosie the Riveter represents strength and resilience. But for 100-year-old Jennifer McMullen, the iconic symbol is a reflection of her own incredible journey. McMullen, a former factory worker at Lockheed Aircraft during World War II, celebrated her milestone birthday at Oakmont Whittier Assisted Living in Whittier, California this week. As Rosie the Riveter, McMullen was one of the nearly 5 million women who filled factory jobs while men were away fighting in the war. These women were essential to building tanks, ships, and planes, which changed the course of American society by breaking down barriers for women entering the workforce. McMullen shared her thoughts, saying, quote, "It feels wonderful. It feels really good. I'm happy that they're here," end quote. In her celebration, McMullen was joined by her husband of nearly 80 years, who is a World War II veteran, and her granddaughter, who read a heartfelt letter from the American Rosie the Riveter Association. The letter praised McMullen's contributions, saying, quote, "You were a Rosie the Riveter, one of the many hardworking and patriotic women who helped ensure Allied victory," end quote. When asked about the future, McMullen gave a signature response in true Rosie fashion, quote, "Looking forward to my 150th," end quote. From her service to her optimism, Jennifer McMullen continues to inspire, proving that some legacies truly stand the test of time. Pittsburgh is no stranger to conflicting weather, especially during the spring, but this upcoming week we might see some consistency. Weather reporter Angelo Esposito has the details. Angelo?
Thanks, Jules. And yes, Pittsburgh weather is notorious for its changing weather week by week, and this week will be no different. But luckily, these weather shifts will be warmer. Starting with tomorrow's weather, the morning will start with cool 41 degrees, mostly cloudy and with 12-mile winds. Throughout the day, the wind will pick up and the temperature will increase to around 45 degrees, with some sun to keep us satisfied. And in the evening, the temp will drop to a frigid 32 degrees. However, the next couple of days we'll be seeing some classic spring temperatures. If Wednesday was in the early 40s with breaks of sun, Thursday starts the trend of increasing temperatures. Thursday's high will be around 56 degrees with mild sun. Friday will increase to a high of 63 and classic spring showers. Saturday will be even warmer as the high will range from 79 to 82 degrees. Sunday will be around 73 with an afternoon thunderstorm. Monday will continue to rain at around 64 degrees, and next Tuesday will go back to the 40s. Pittsburgh's erratic weather will continue its streak, but overall we won't see any wildly uncomfortable temperatures. Now, back to the desk.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television.
You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or our website, uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Ruthie Light.
And I'm Juliana Brock. From everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.